Thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will try to give you, that's quite a challenging task, to give you a few insights about the global dynamics in the vegetable business. To do so, I will start from, Syngenta is a market leader in crop protection and seeds. I will start to give you an indication, a snapshot of what is the vegetable seeds. And as you can see, we estimate right now $6 billion, the seed market vegetable globally. And these $6 billion are generating, in fact, at grower level, more than $120 billion. And this at consumer level means more than $600 billion. So as you can understand, the vegetable business is a truly global business. And the value that the seeds, the genetics, and the grower, and the entire value chain is generating is huge, having a great impact socially across all the countries in the world. And I want just to mention there are a lot of species that are grown across the world, and there are more than 50 million hectares in vegetable. And one of the emerging technology, it is the protected greenhouse. And out of more than 2 million hectares of protected greenhouse, more than 80% it is located in China. And I will give you a little bit more details where we are moving about those technologies. So, when we are talking about vegetable, necessarily we have to think about the value chain. Any dynamics that is around vegetable, it is starting somewhere in the value chain. Of course, there is on one end the seeds that is delivering the technology in the market. There is this technology push. However, across all the different steps in the value chain, each of the value chain players has an important role in the business, generating value and generating a lot of innovations and dynamics. And I think that this is an important message. When we are talking about vegetable, necessarily we have to think about all the players and all the needs that are across the value chain, and to think how to better serve them in order to create value. So moving a little bit more into the general global dynamics, I would like, which are of course linked to the value chain as well, I would like just to focus on one of the, let's say, the last 10, 15 years, one of the key dynamics. As you can see from this slide, the majority of the vegetables that are grown globally are usually locally produced and delivered within a few hundred kilometers. However, in the last 10, 15 years, there is a great trend globally where there is a need for year-round supply, which is, of course, a clear need coming from the retailers and the consumer side to have vegetables available every day of the year. And those dynamics has pushed for, I would call those 3 macro production hubs globally, of course, looking after the North Hemisphere, and those are becoming really center of excellence in terms of new technologies, in terms of new dynamics of the market. I will go through some characteristics of each of them. If we take the example of Mexico and Central America, this is a macro hub where the production, the protected production, is increasing quite rapidly. And this has, of course, an impact across the rest of the Americas, especially on North America. We were just listening to some challenges. And of course, one of the challenges for some growers, and especially for some crops, it is in fact the growth that we are having right now in Mexico for protected crop. That is, of course, addressing the North America market. And it is, in fact, bridging, let's say, the needs and bridging the production coming from the active greenhouse, which is predominantly spread across North America and Canada. Of course, this is leading to an improved availability of quality vegetable along the year, which is also putting under pressure the North America vegetable business. If we take the example of tomatoes and peppers that are grown in protected greenhouse, of course the quality is higher compared to what can be delivered from the open field, and this is creating new trends and setting new quality standard in the market. And of course, this is also creating a lot of pressure around cost production, which is in fact the next piece that it is suffering, and it is generating such dynamics. So, in a summary, this is a big production hub that is still developing. Just to give you a very simple example, just 10 years ago, there were less than 3,000 hectares of plastic greenhouses and net houses in Mexico. Today, we have more than 20,000 hectares. And as you can imagine, each hectare of protected crops means usually between 4 and 10 hectares less in open field, especially for crops like tomatoes, pepper, and cucumber. So if we move to the other important area for production of vegetable, it is the Mediterranean basin. The Mediterranean basin is in Europe, let's say, the garden for North and Central Europe. And in the last few years, there is quite a fast growth of new protected greenhouses and technologies in all the Northern Africa, for instance, Morocco or Senegal or Tunisia. Those countries are growing quite quickly on top of Spain, that it has been always since the last 30 years the key production area. And of course, the expansion of this production area and the overwinter crop, it is of course having a great impact on the rest of Europe. Because, you know, during the summer, the majority of the fruity crops in vegetable are coming from the active greenhouse or the open field, and during the winter is coming from those passive greenhouse. And of course, this has a great impact on the spring crops. In the last few years, the growth of the overwinter crop in South Europe did provoke a fast declining of the spring crops and even some open field. And more, you have a longer cycle that is going from, let's say, late summer till beginning of December over the winter. And thanks to the new technology, this is something that is delivering, because, you know, in the last few years with the introduction of the grafting, the rootstock, it is possible to have longer cycle. It is possible to deliver yield, better quality year-round, especially during winter, which was not the case a few years ago. I think that this is a trend that, as everywhere, is pushing toward the consolidation of the value chain, because another big trend that we see linked to those production hubs, it is really the fact that there are a lot of growers, and more you must be very well equipped in terms of size and critical mass in order to afford the investment that are needed in such high technology. The last piece that I want to share with you, it is related to the China. China, it is working with suboptimal, let's say, technology, but the Chinese market is the biggest in terms of vegetable, and it is the fast-growing market, and the new technologies are even accommodating, also in this case, longer crop cycles. And more, we see new technology that could also afford, let's say, better quality, and also thinking to export toward other markets. Already China is exporting some high-value vegetable to Russia, for instance, or to Korea and Japan. And that's a new trend that for sure in the future will develop. So if we look what is the, let's say, the outlook of the next 10 years in vegetable, I strongly believe that the population growth, of course, will contribute again to further development of our business, the vegetable business. And importantly, there are two different drivers. In the emerging market, the driver is different versus the, let's say, developed market. And then the more important part will be the adoption of new technologies. And here there is again a big variability according to the specific market. And we can discuss a little bit later about how, what is the role that also Australia could play in that area. And then the food chain. The food chain, it is the other big driver for the future growth in vegetable. And here the food chain means a lot of things. We heard yesterday, for instance, about the snacking vegetable, how important those are becoming. And again, the food chain has a great impact potentially to drive and to shape new market and new segments. However, there is growth opportunity, a lot of them are available, are there, but there are also some barriers. We just learned from my previous speaker, that water, for instance, it is one of the barriers, but we have also other barriers, like the labor availability, and in some, let's say, emerging market, also the infrastructure, which is not always following up the needs of the value chain. Land availability is not most probably the case everywhere, but more and more in some developed markets, the land availability is becoming also an issue. So moving a little bit on the growth, there is different trends and different dynamics. In the emerging market, of course, the growth will come predominantly from the volume, although we are talking about very small orders, because this will take some time to consolidate. In the developed market, the growth from vegetable will come more from the diversification. And we learn more and more that in the developed market, the consumption per capita per year, it is declining. However, the value, it is still increasing. The example of, again, snacking tomato or other, let's say, processed food or ready meals, it is a good example how still, although the volume is declining, the value, it is still increasing. And there are a lot of examples, again, that we can take the trend in the developed market about ready meals, for instance, or prepared stuff. It is really becoming more and more available everywhere. And for instance, the story of the fresh cut, what happened in the last 5-10 years, also in some very traditional markets in Europe, it is also a good indication how still the vegetable can produce a lot of value, and a lot of added value can be added to very simple product. When we move to the technology adoption, I mentioned before the protected greenhouse, but it is important to understand that there is a great correlation between, let's say, the level of sophistication of the value chain and, let's say, the characteristic of the production. If you take the example of the emerging value chain, there is always, which is characteristic of the emerging market, there is always, let's say, a lower and less sophisticated production circumstances. Here you have an example, India, it is a good example, where you have a low emerging value chain, and you have also low technology applied to that. As soon as we move to the developed value chain, immediately there is a need for higher fruit quality, and the higher fruit quality can be achieved only if there is a better setup in terms of production systems. It is the example of Australia as well, although Australia is moving more toward the right side, where you have a very developed value chain. Usually you start to have a growing impact of the protected crop, because through the protected crop it is possible to deliver, let's say, better quality year-round, and it is possible also to secure and plan much better than the open field. So this is again the trend. Not everything will move to protected crop, but somewhere there is an important trend in some key areas that the protected market will play an important and critical role. When we move more on specific, let's say, technology adoption, I think that, again, without going into details about the emerging and the developed market, but it is important to understand that in the emerging market, there is still a development in terms of acreage, and the hybridization, the hybrid adoption will be the key driver for the growth of the productivity. In the case of a developed market, most probably we are going to see a reduction of the acreage for the reasons that I just explained. And we will see more and more technology adoption in order to increase the yield and to secure a consistency of fruit quality. Those are the key mega trends that, in fact, are going across all the value chain. Then the important point to be mentioned, we already touched several times the value chain. We strongly believe that the vegetable market dynamics are highly influenced by the downstream, which indeed will shape and will drive the creation of some segment. And again, the consolidation, there is a great example, it is Australia, where the value chain is rather consolidated. But when we look across the world, for sure this is the trend and this is what is going to happen. And this has, of course, an impact all over the value chain, especially at the grower level, where, of course, we need to go for a further consolidation. It is important to understand that the growth of food service and fresh versus the preserved, especially in the developed market, it is another important, let's say, drive, that it is, of course, driven from the higher demand for convenience from the consumer, but also from the fact that it is easier to manage, and there is a strong push from the retailer in order to secure also better, higher turnover and better profitability per square meter. Importantly, to mention it is the sustainability. There is more and more attention around sustainability, so it means that also from the production perspective, we have to think more what is the offer and how can we contribute to deliver messages and consistent and tangible facts that are demonstrating to the consumer that our production, it is more sustainable. And important, another trend, dynamics, it is the e-commerce. It is not yet there, but we know that in some markets start to become a reality. And in the near future, it will play for sure a role as well. Without going into details about the limitation factor, but I want to underline once more the labor. I do believe that the labor, it is the major limitation factor right now, not only for the cost, but especially for the skills and the availability. And it is this across the globe. Just to give a simple example, also in China, which you might wonder that there is plenty of people and there is plenty of labor available, it is not true anymore. Since mid of last year, the majority of the Chinese population is living in the city, in the urban area, and there are now more and more people that are moving from Vietnam to work in China. So it means that the labor is becoming across the globe a big issue. So Australian, just to give my input about my contribution about what does it mean for Australia. It is, of course, a sophisticated consumer market. There is a higher vegetable quality required year-round. There is a consolidated modern retailing system, and of course, vegetable is usually the brand of freshness and uniqueness. Everybody's looking for vegetable. When you enter in any supermarket, the first stuff that you have in front of you are usually vegetable, fruit and vegetable. So it means that we have a great role to play through, let's say, the delivery of the quality through the vegetable production. The implications that are already happening, of course, it is shortening the value chain and more integrated producer. So it means that the integration from the producer and going toward closer to the retailer, it is already happening. It is the increasing of protected crop. I learned that also in Australia there is a strong move from open field to protected for the reasons that are the same logic and rationale coming from all the other areas that I mentioned to you. And most probably what I really see in Australia, great opportunity still, a lot of innovation and diversification could happen at vegetable level. We learned again yesterday about snacking, but there are a lot of stuff that is available, most probably new varieties, new product in other parts of the world that can be used and can be proposed as innovative vegetable for the Australia consumer. This is something that already happened for some product, but can happen also for others. So, in conclusion, the message that I want to to deliver is the following. The market is increasing, so it means that there are a lot of opportunities for all of us. Of course, there are also some potential constraint and limitation that should be taken into account. The downstream will have a great impact on shaping our business, and the production limiting factor can be, in fact, trade-off by the new technologies that are going to be introduced in the market. And I want to just underline that Syngenta, through the strong R&D capabilities, it is on the front line to deliver new varieties, to deliver new traits, new disease resistances, new variety that bring innovative taste, innovative colors, and healthy characteristics. So, with this message, I would like to thank you and wish you a great event. Thank you very much.